Hi, Analisa Six here with the Lady of Leisure and the Sober Curator to give you the 2023 April horoscope for the sun and rising sign of Gemini. I feel like I have to do a dance every time I say that whole spiel. Maybe I don't have to say the whole spiel. Maybe I can just open this with, "Hey, yo, Gemini, what's up? How's it going? How you doing? Here's your horoscope." I am fading. I am tired. I'm trying to get through these videos because they're already a week late and I don't have a lot of time to get them done until like the third week of April. So I just gotta power through it. I just gotta do it. I might be delirious, I might be fatigued, I might be like, ugh. I mean, that's why they're not on time to begin with, is because it's hard on my body to do these, and it sucks because I like doing them. Let's talk about you, Gemini. So it's interesting because we've had a lot of energy in Aries. We're currently in Aries season right now. And the area that's been highlighted for the Gemini individual is the area that rules friendship circles and group dynamics and the people that we associate ourselves with when it comes to like political organizations or social organizations, community events, all that kind of stuff. And when we have a lot of like really extroverted energy passing through this chart, like the sun and Venus and Mercury and Jupiter and all the things that have been there throughout the last few weeks, which Venus isn't there anymore, but you know, we've got Mercury and Jupiter and Vesta still here, and the sun and Chiron. There's kind of this like elevated need to socialize or network or connect with friends. And there's just kind of more of a ramp up of this extroverted energy. And so if you've been feeling like a need to connect with people that you care about or connect with friends or be involved in more of your community or group activities or even like activism, like if that's something that you want to do, I've got a message coming up here. Oops. Sorry, things are going on with my computer. That's just that's emphasized for you right now still. You're starting to move out of it though, so that was more true for you maybe the last few weeks of March, and then entering into April we still have a little bit of that going on. But Mercury now, since it's April 7th today, Mercury's not in Aries anymore. The sun is still hitting that, but not for very much longer. And we're starting to move into an area of the horoscope chart for Gemini that's starting to become a little more introverted and a little bit more private. And so your energy is going to start tapering a little bit out of the social bubble where you had a lot more energy, and you're going to start really kind of getting a little bit more introverted, self-focused, and needing some more downtime to probably recharge from a lot of that social activity. And so, yeah, I mean, I think Gemini, like, has a very hot and cold disposition to it, right? It's the twins. It's the journey of Castor and Pollux from the underworld to life and switching back and forth, that whole mythology. And, you know, people say Gemini is like the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, but really what it is you've got an extroverted quality to you and you've got an introverted quality to you. And you're kind of always doing this dance between the two, which we all are, but some of us are a little bit more fixed in our temperaments than Gemini. Gemini is a very hot and cold energy. And for you, like you've had this period, you know, where it feels like you want to be more social, and now that's about to turn off. We have Mercury in Taurus today, and then we have Venus in Taurus today, and we have Mars in Cancer. So that's where our personal planets are currently on April 7th. And it's highlighting the area of your chart that has to do with your subconscious. And so even though you still have this energy in the social area, you also have a lot that's going through the area that represents more of your deeper part of yourself, your spiritual part, your subconscious part, the part of you that's operating in the background. And it's a really good time for you to be working on healing any wounds in the subconscious, any trauma in the subconscious, especially somatic trauma that shows up in your body, having it in this area in Taurus. And so if we have triggers in the world, you know, that trigger a somatic response, it's really hard to heal that. It takes years of specific types of modalities of healing and therapy to truly take a somatic response and change it. I've been really successful at certain ones in certain circumstances. And then there's areas of my life where I just feel like no matter how many things I've done or how hard I try, I can't seem to get my body to stop having a certain reaction to a certain situation. And Body Keeps the Score, that book is a book that, I think a lot of people have read at this point that talks a lot about that. And I'm bringing that book up because a lot of the way that Mercury and Venus are kind of passing through the subconscious area in Taurus is an opportunity to work on healing some of those subconscious things that bring up somatic trauma. But you're not a failure if that never goes away. And I think that that's something that I'm still learning. I think that when I was starting a lot of my spiritual healing journey, I had this belief that if I just did things a certain way or had a certain belief system or just rewired my brain enough, that I was going to get those things gone fast. I knew it would take time, but I was like, yeah, like a year or a couple years or something. And I didn't realize like, oh, this is going to take my whole life. Like these things are going to take effort and practice my entire life. Like it's something I'm going to have to constantly be working on, and there's times when I can tell that the work I've done has really paid off, where I'm like, wow, normally in the past that totally would have triggered me and it's not triggering me anymore. And I feel totally fine, even in my body. And then there's things where I thought that I was way further along in my healing journey than I am. And I get really triggered by something in like a whiplash way. So like maybe in the moment, I feel totally fine or compartmentalized. And really what I'm doing is disassociating. Like I'm totally disassociating from what's happening. And then once it's done, I have time to like sit with it, and then all of a sudden the somatic reaction comes out. And sometimes I don't know that I'm disassociating until I'm in that whiplash stage of having the somatic reaction. And I think that one of the things that is typical for a lot of people in their healing practice or journey, people are really Gen Zers are really making fun of us millennials for saying our journey. And now every time I say it, I'm like, God damn it, I don't want to say that shit anymore. Gen Z, you're hurting us millennials, right? Like I get it, it's funny, but like, man, like what else am I supposed to say? My life, my quest. I'm gonna start saying in my quest for greatness, in my quest for relief from pain, which is never ending. That's really funny to me, actually. But yeah, I think that what happens a lot of times is that if we aren't at a certain level in our own healing that we thought we were at, we get really discouraged or we feel like it's not working, and I think that I've been definitely in a place, especially with my health the last couple of years, where I just feel really angry a lot because I feel like I did all the right stuff that's supposed to prevent a lot of what's happening in my life right now. And it's a good learning opportunity, right? When you feel like you're doing the right thing and then you realize, but at the end of the day, I'm still human and these things happen, like we have bad days or we have triggers that we thought we were over, but that one thing was just too much. In dog training, we call it trigger stacking. I had to pause my recording to take a phone call and I totally lost my train of thought. So we're going to just jump right back in here. There's a lot going on in my life right now. And it's just weird because being unemployed, it feels like in theory, since I'm a housewife and unemployed, that doing these videos should just be really easy, but it's just not. For some reason. I don't get it. I want it to be easy. I want to blog. Maybe my horoscope when I get to it will lend me some insight there. It's just a lot. It's a lot of energy expenditure, and each sign is going through something different, and I'm so absorbent of what it is that y'all are going through that it's also like I start thinking a million miles an hour, and then if I have interruptions, it's just really hard for me to get back on track. But I think a lot of what I was talking about was just how there's kind of this introverted period that's coming up for you where you have an ability to really focus more on the deeper parts of yourself that need your attention right now. For the month of April, pretty much, like we have a lot of energy that's coming up that's really going to be kind of more of this like interpersonal self-focused time. So we talked about Venus and Mercury in Taurus, and then Mercury is going to be in Taurus in the subconscious area of your horoscope chart for a while. It's going to station retrograde on the 20th, and then it's going to be in Taurus, retrograde until it stations direct in May, on May 15th, and then it'll finish in Taurus and not enter your sign, which is Mercury's home sign of Gemini, until June 11th. And so while Mercury's in Taurus, you have this opportunity to really focus on the somatic, that's what I was talking about, like somatic healing, and this opportunity to really heal and work on these parts of yourself that are hard to heal and take a lot of time. And it's important that you find a lot of grace and patience, which is Taurus's patience, is a really good Mercury and Taurus word. So that's hard for Gemini. Gemini is a very impatient kind of ADD sign. Like a lot of people with Gemini placements are on the ADD spectrum, and they get bored easily, and it's like, I want to jump to this, I want to jump to that, I want to jump to this. And unfortunately, you can't really heal a lot in the subconscious by distracting yourself with a bunch of things. Like, that's not how that works. Healing is very slow, doesn't have to be painful, but it's a slow process. It has to be a very mindful, intentional process. And sometimes we have to sit in discomfort in order to heal. And that is also really hard, and not necessarily what even Taurus likes. Taurus prefers comfort zones and pleasure. And so I personally think that we can heal in pleasure. I don't think that we have to push ourselves to do all this risky discomfort stuff to heal. But what I do think we have to do that's uncomfortable is sometimes sit in a part of ourselves that we're trying to escape sometimes, like cringe-worthy stuff, right? I remember, like, I was going through a conflict with a friend, and I was really trying to get to the root of this pattern in my life that I was having with people occasionally. And I would feel like people were in competition with me, and I didn't like it. I was like, I don't want to have friendships where I feel like I'm in competition with people. And I was trying to get to the root of where that stemmed from. And what I realized was that even though I didn't like it in my current reality, there was a point when I was younger where I had issues around feeling like not good enough or not worthy enough, very Taurus theme. And so when I had friends that looked up to me, or if I had friends that copied me, or if I had friends that wanted what I had, it made me feel better about myself. It made me feel like I was worthy of something, or that I was cool and therefore I was accepted, right? And what happened though was that I would end up in these weird dynamics where I felt like there was competition, and I didn't want that. I wanted to feel more like there was an equal, fair, mutual love and respect and admiration. And I realized as long as I wanted people to look up to me or be jealous or envious of me, I was always going to have friendship dynamics that were unhealthy or weird in that way. And once I had that really uncomfortable self-realization that I felt like I was benefiting from it in terms of validating my self-worth, it sucked. I felt like shit about myself because it was embarrassing to admit that I liked people wanting what I had, because it's such a shitty, like, high school immature thing. But I think a lot of people have that. I think a lot of people want to show off and say, look at me, look at what I have, look at what I've accomplished, and come at it from that place. I think that's a really, like, young, immature, like in your 20s thing. And then I think there's a point where you outgrow that, and it's just fun to embrace and enjoy what you have with the people that you love in any capacity, no matter what it is, whether you're in a beautiful part of the world in a beautiful house, or you're in the ghetto in a city in an apartment, just enjoying the company of others. And anything, like having anything, and just enjoying the people that you love is more important than those hierarchical social dynamics. And some people outgrow that stuff and some people don't. But the shadow work part of it, the deeper work, is acknowledging if there's a pattern in my life that I don't like and I keep reliving it, what is the root of that pattern, and what's my role in the pattern? Why am I willing to play the game in the pattern? Where is that coming from? And it's different for everybody. So when you're having a somatic response that's negative to something, or you're in a pattern, or you're having something from your subconscious come up that you're still working on healing, sometimes getting to the root of it and finding out the role that you play in any way, whether, I mean, the role that I was playing was a little bit more shitty, you know, in that, but I didn't know, like it was a subconscious thing. I wasn't actualized in it. I think maybe when I was a kid, I knew, but as an adult, I didn't realize that that's what was happening, because it was just more of like a subconscious thought. If I don't know if that makes sense, because once it was brought into the conscious, it was really obvious that was what was happening. But I didn't think that that's what I didn't actually think or know that that's what was happening until I brought it into my consciousness. And then there's things that we work through that are somatic that happen to us where maybe we were a victim, you know, of something. And so then certain things that were normalized to us, we don't know are red flags. And so we end up around people or situations that are actually really toxic or really not safe. And we don't have a gauge in our somatic response that is a radar going off, because it was normalized, or we were conditioned so young to find it normal. And then we don't know why we keep ending up around these toxic situations. And it's like, well, because all of the precursors to the toxic situation are not red flags to us, right? They're normal. And I was in that too. Like there were so many things that I was raised around that were normal to me, that when I got older, I just was like, yeah, whatever. And then it started to be really unhealthy. And I was like, what, why is this, you know, happening? And then I was like, oh, because like this was normal, you know? So there's things like in our somatic responses to stuff that are subconscious, that we don't know are unhealthy or not serving us if we weren't taught that, or if there wasn't a gauge for that. But there's some other wisdom in us that knows something's off, but we haven't figured it out. And so that might be something with the Mercury and Taurus passing through the area of subconscious, and Taurus being this very like, you know, fixed earth reality body, you know, centered energy. Like this is a very physically somatic time for you to be working through and reflecting on that stuff, which is heavy. Venus is going to enter your sign of Gemini on the 11th. And this is great. Venus is the esoteric ruler of Gemini. Venus in Gemini rules the Lover's card. So we're going to be kind of in this Lover's card energy throughout April after the 11th. And Venus in Gemini is here to resolve all the conflict that Mars and Gemini brought up. Venus is coming in. I kind of just imagine with like this little sweeper broom, like going, okay, let's clean this up. Let's fix all the drama. Let's clean this up. However, Mars in Cancer is still kind of kicking up some dust, especially for us emotionally. And it's requiring us to have to work through vulnerability and be more open about our feelings and more confrontational with what's bothering us. So if you're the kind of person that doesn't like to talk about your feelings, doesn't wear your heart on your sleeve, wants everybody to think you're okay, or wants to keep everything private, that's going to bleed out. So it's really important that you work on actually talking about your feelings before it blows up, before it spirals into something bigger that you could have just worked out by some healthy conversation. The area that's hitting for the horoscope chart also has to do with your income and your money. Mars passing through the income money house is not positive in a lot of astrological schools of thought. There's a need to be really mindful with your money and your investments. Obviously, Mercury stationing retrograde on the 20th. It's not a good time to be taking any financial risks, especially in Taurus anyways. So Mars is going to be in Cancer in this area of your chart until May 21st, it looks like. So it would be wise for you to just be really frugal and mindful with your spending for April and most of May. That is my advice to you, Gemini, in that capacity. When Venus enters Gemini on that 11th day, it's also going to be making a trine to Pluto. 4 days later, we're going to have a square between Venus and Saturn. And so the Venus-Saturn square is going to be challenging for all of us, having it in Gemini and Pisces, a lot of feelings, a lot of need to talk things out, overthinking certain relationship dynamics is likely. The area that it's hitting for you has to do with your identity and your work. And so if you're overthinking certain communication dynamics or your identity and role in your job, and you're thinking that you're ready to change something about that, it's not a good time to take action in that way, but it is a good time to start thinking about it and maybe making plans. June is a better month to be taking action when it comes to anything Mercury retrograde is not a good time to take action. So June is just a better time in general, especially we're going to have Venus and Mars in Leo together in June. So again, it'll be a little bit of a better time for taking action, and Mercury in domicile in Gemini. Let's talk about the lunar phases. So we're going to have a, well, we already had a full moon in Libra on the 6th, which was yesterday. And the area that impacted the Gemini horoscope had to do with your, basically the way that you identify with your social circles again, and then also your passion, your romantic energy, your creative energy. And so this is a really good time to set intentions around friendship circles, who you associate with, and also the energy that you give to that, and your energy around how you express yourself. There's a really good amplification of creativity for Gemini during this full moon. You also are going to have more of an inclination towards wanting to share yourself with other people around this full moon. We've already moved out of the Libra energy and into Scorpio moon energy, but we're still in that little orb of full moon up until a full moon energy up until tomorrow, I think. So if you're watching this in time, you still kind of have this amplification around your creative projects, creative energy, and wanting to maybe tune into that a little bit. We're going to have our solar eclipse in Aries on April 20th. And so that's going to be at 29 degrees Aries, which is going to be impacting your social circles again. So again, like you might be in this period where you're really reflecting on who you associate with and whether or not you have people in your life that are contributing to your life in a positive way, or if you're in a point in your life where there's people you're ready to kind of say goodbye to and move on, when it comes to the group of friends or the circles that you associate with. I feel like I'm not speaking very eloquently with that, but 29 degrees is the last degree of a sign. And so when we have this energy, it's kind of like there's an ending, like it's like this last little bit of this happening. And having it in the area that represents friendship circles, group dynamics, even political circles, our ideology might be changing to some extent, or the people that we're around, we might be kind of ready to move on from. We might be seeking new horizons in that way. The thing that's interesting about this eclipse is that right after the Aries eclipse hits, the moon and sun are going to move into Taurus. And it's almost like we have this other new moon energy of Taurus, which is really good for setting intentions around things that we want to manifest in the physical. And then where it's happening in the Gemini chart is in that subconscious area, again, that has to do with the somatic energy. And so setting intentions around somatic healing, around trauma, and getting your physical body around trauma in a better place, and having some new modalities to work on that or work through that is it's a really powerful exercise for the Gemini to do. Geminis are prone to anxiety a lot too, right? And so a lot of times anxiety is energy that's stuck in the body that has nowhere to go, that needs to be expelled. Geminis benefit a lot from exercise and moving the body to get a lot of that anxious energy out. Sitting around with it and just like not doing anything but overthinking is really not good for Gemini nervous system. So it's good for you to kind of work on how to get energy moving through the body in a constructive way, but also finding out how to have patience and sit with yourself and be a little bit more grounded is also really important for you. During Taurus season, it's really good for you to reflect on your relationship to the earth. What is your relationship to earth energy and grounding and having that container? Sometimes earth feels really constrictive, and sometimes the grounding of earth can feel really healing, so it's really positive over the last half of April, after we have this new moon solar eclipse in Aries, to really center in on that and kind of get into a place where you feel like you have a safe container to kind of lean into and really hear yourself in your body and hear what your body is telling you in that somatic kind of way. I hope all of that makes sense. I think I'm going to stop. I think I'm good. I think, Gemini, you are good. And I think I am going to be done for the rest of the night. I wish you a happy spring and entry into this new astrological year, and I will see you next month.